Hello and welcome to another discussion in the SF Masterworks reading group. This is a series where we are working our way through the SF Masterworks in publication order. We read one book every month. The book for, this was supposed to be a March book, but it's Scanner Darkly by Philip K. Dick. The book's coming up for the next 3 months, which I think I don't have my copy with me, but there's Jared with the screen swipe of the book. The book's coming up for the next 3 months, which I think we'll still manage to do April's book in April or just a little bit late. So we'll still call that the April book. It's going to be Star Maker by Olaf Stapledon. Then for May, it's going to be Behold the Man by Michael Moorcock. And finally for June, we'll be reading The Book of Skulls by Robert Silverberg. These discussions are open to anybody interested. So if you'd like to join us for the discussion, please check out the Patreon forum. That's where we do all the scheduling and planning. Uh, Also, if you'd like to chat with us about the books on the forum, check out the Patreon forum. That's pretty much it. With me, of course, I have Jared. How are you doing today?
Awesome.
Very
Another
nice.
one, another one down. I like it.
Mm. Yes, and another Philip K. Dick book too. How does
Yeah,
it? So we've read "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep" and "Martian Time Slip" by Philip K. Dick, and I think
that's
at
correct.
this point, this is the author we've had most books from in the
Yes.
Masterworks series. So, what did you think? How did it? And you liked his previous books, right? You
Yes, I did.
did.
Yep.
So how do you think this compares to those?
Um, I think for me for this one, this is I feel like it's his best written one. It was
Hmm.
written later. This was written in '77, and I feel like I think he really this book feels if it feels more personal, and when you read the afterward, you kind of see that it is more personal. But I also feel that this book had a bit tighter plot and a bit deeper characterization than we
Hmm.
had got in his previous novels. Like Do Androids Dream was and Martian Time Slip. They were mostly big idea novels
Hmm.
in the classic science fiction, mode.
Yeah.
And this one seemed a little bit more up with the times that it was written. With the late '70s, it was more. This is a bit more. Not that he didn't have social conscience in his previous novels, but this one was a bit more dead on with that, and it just felt like it was the prose flowed a little bit better, and and I think this is the better novel overall. I don't know if I liked it personally
Hmm.
better
Hmm.
than Androids,
Hmm.
because I just thought it was cool,
Yeah.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I think it's a really cool concept and a cool novel, um, but I like this too. I had a good time reading it. I really like some of the stuff he said, and I think it was very good. And I think it's his best written one as far as what we've read so far. Long way of saying that, but
Interesting. Yeah. Um. That makes sense. Oh, I'm so sorry. 1 second.
oh,
One
whew.
second. Sorry, there was a slight break because because I needed to deal with a page. But yes. What was I saying? The writing style, that makes sense. I can't say I noticed that per se. Like I wasn't looking for that. Oh, there's another one coming. But um right, so the what I did notice though is it feels like the uh it feels yeah, I guess there is a certain aspect of maturity to it, like you said, that maybe is a little more mature than the other books that we've read. One thing that stood out to me though is I think the two books that we've read so far and the one coming up, Ubik, that also it has female characters to sort of play this the role of um what do you call it? It's just there to confuse our male protagonist, if that makes sense. But in this one, like Donna actually has a proper role, and and it turns out like that she's even more significant than we think she is. But she's there, and she's just a character, and it's possible. I think a bunch of these people he said were based on real people that he knew, right? In the afterward. So I don't remember if Donna was one of the people that he based his characters on. No, if Donna was one of the characters that were based on
Mm,
real people, but she felt a lot more fleshed out than the female characters in his other books that I've read so far, which was
yeah.
interesting to me. That just stood out. But apart from that, I think without the, say, the hollow scanners, this would just be, this could be contemporary literary fiction, like whatever your classification of that is. It's it was strange to me for a long period that this was classified as science fiction. I was like, what about this is science fiction? And not in a bad way. I was curious curious why there and not, as the contemporary fiction instead. But I
Mm,
think the hollow scanners probably, and maybe the strange drugs. I guess those aren't real,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
There was a weird dichotomy reading this as science fiction because, like you said, they're able to scan with these hollow scanners and stuff like that. And there was a couple other little things that it was like a future type thing. I don't remember exactly what they were, but then in the same breath, he's mentioning, um, telephones and McDonald's
yeah,
and so there was definitely stuff that grounded it in his time period, uh,
yeah.
and so it you kind of had to put all that aside and just go with the flow as far as it's the future, but it's not really the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an interesting point because in again the other books that we've read, there was, I guess, one big piece of technology that he's exploring. Like with androids, it's of course androids, sentient androids with Martian time slip. It's space travel plus some other like psychological discussion there, and it this one, but well, there is sort of corresponding or like commensurate growth of technology to, right, wherever they are in the future, right, they have that advanced piece of tech, but also a whole bunch of other things that would seem to have like progressed alongside this. In this one, like you said, it's set in its time very much, and then it has like one extra piece of tech that they can like use to do 3D projections of people and watch them instead of like videos. So yeah, so uh it wasn't about the technology at all. I think it was only one of the pieces with which he explored the questions of identity, um or loss of it thereof. So yeah, it is a very different book from all his other work, but also I
Mhm.
think different just in and of itself. I really enjoyed this book. I listened to it on audiobook,
Oh, okay.
and the audiobook narrator was really good. I enjoyed his narration, and I think he did a good job of. There's a lot of rambling confusion throughout the book, and I think he did a really good job of voicing that.
Yeah. Eh, yeah, no, absolutely. I think he did a great job of, yeah, because I mean, we know right off the bat that this main character, um, you know, who goes back and forth between Bob Octor and um, Fred,
Mm,
and is the same person. We've that gets explained pretty quickly. He's even explaining it to himself in some points,
mhm.
and I think he did a really good job of keeping those entities separate but the same at the same time. And he was because when he was Bob, and when he was Fred, he was Fred.
Yeah,
And I think he did a great job of just distinctly characterizing them as different characters, even though they were the same person. It just depends upon which part of that dual personality was in charge at the time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and it was cool. I mean, I guess part of the sci-fi is that the drug could actually do that
Mm,
as well. This substance D
yeah.
that's a new drug that's not doesn't didn't previously exist, and
Mm,
so that's then that's a common trope for some science fiction stories is that it's in the modern day, but there's a new thing that
mm,
is the science, is the sci-fi, so that's part of what you can take away from this, because they're still driving these old gas guzzler cars that you can
yeah.
fix the carburetor on the side
Yeah.
of the in your driveway, so it's
No
hard to
fuel
find those.
efficiency for you.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to find those nowadays, but, uh, so yeah, I think he did a great job with that, and all the other characters in the book were there to, basically flesh out that main
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I love the way it started too, and it that the character we start with isn't the main character we follow, right? Like the guy who sees insects all over. And again,
yeah,
this is a sci-fi book, so we we don't know yet if he's hallucinating or if it's some creatures from a parallel world that only he can see. And, uh, but yeah, I think that unravels pretty quickly and we start to understand what's going on. It's and the drug use and abuse is introduced pretty quickly. um and then we start following our main character Bob, actor slash Fred. And I think Bob is the person who takes Jerry, the person who can see insects, to to the facility, right? Is he the one?
I believe so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So he is introduced in that opening scene, and then we are introduced to Fred in a following chapter. And I love the sort of unhinged him going off script, uh, asking for, I guess, understanding and sympathy for the people who do use drugs, uh, and what their life might be like. I think that was really interesting. That went I think that was the moment when I wanted to see if, like, I had a vague notion that Philip K. Dick had a history of drug use. So I looked for the author's note to see if this was based on some personal uh, experiences. And it turns out it was, right? From there on, I think the book just read differently from knowing that, or it had the added layer of depth from knowing that about the author, and the book, that it was based on his own experiences. But I think from there on also is where the mm, the discussion of identity and people grappling with it starts. And I think he did such a fantastic job. And this is in the context of people who use drugs. So there is, of course, the obvious dissonance between, I guess, the person who, at the point of like hitting the low points, right? Like when they start to feel shitty about themselves, for like when the fun wears off and everything else starts to go bad, the person who decides to stop versus the person who decides to continue, like they feel like two separate entities, right? And
Yeah.
I think we all experience that on some small level about, like, say, working out or like doing something better for ourselves, but it has to be so much worse for them. and and similar and then I guess to start from that almost metaphorical situation to actually really break this person up into two. I think that was just done so brilliantly, and the metaphor and the discussion stayed through that, right? It didn't become cheapened or less interesting because of like actually physically not,
Mm.
and physically, I mean, like, because of the corpus callosum thing, that the split brain
Yeah.
leading to multiple personalities. um yeah, it actually added a lot of depth to that exploration of identity, and I think it was done brilliantly.
Yeah, I think he was trying to take it a little bit beyond, regular schizophrenia
Mm,
and trying to explain it as an actual dual personality, like, there's actually 2 people in there, and, uh, and that was pretty cool how he was trying to, use the drugs as the cause of that, and, it this, yeah, it's just really neat how he, tried to explain all that and tried to give us that sense that what really what really drove it home was when Fred, as an agent, as um, a drug enforcement agent or whatever he um, was trying to watch surveillance basically on himself, and he couldn't like put that he couldn't grasp that fact that he was trying to catch, these people, and Barb Octor being one of the ones he was trying to catch. And he he that act of him trying to catch himself is kind of really, I think, a good metaphor for people trying to stop themselves or trying to,
mm,
and not succeeding
yeah,
because, ultimately, when people fall into these habits of drug use and stuff like that, they're unable to stop themselves, and they have a very, very difficult time doing so. And I just like how he equated that, through a agent surveilling himself, and it was just it was pretty cool
yeah,
how he did that.
yeah. And that was again absolutely brilliant, I guess, narratively for me, that it starts with him knowing that he's monitoring himself, right? Like, he knows what's coming, he knows that he was party to this conversation. There are even some instances where he learns more about his friends, like the fact that the other guy, I forget, the more cruel one, he
Oh
would have
yeah,
let him choke, uh let his friend choke, right? He calls 911 afterwards very casually or something. There's some interaction there, and Fred gets chills knowing this, learning this about him, and and then eventually that starts breaking down to him thinking that he knows what's coming somehow, maybe because he's hanging out with these people, so he's familiar with how their mind works, and at that point it's unclear whether he is starting to be separated from himself, right? But he is. And then and then when he has that conversation with, who is it, Hank, like his handler basically,
yeah,
he talks about Bob Actor as if he's a third person and someone he doesn't even know, and
right,
that guy has to tell him that you are Bob.
yeah,
And that was just so brilliantly done. Like, there was all this confusion that built up, and then just sort of like pulled pulled together in one stroke.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty cool, and pretty cool. And there was um there was quite a bit of social commentary in here about various various aspects of life. And one of the things I noticed right away was his his view of what consumerism was going to turn into. And
Mm.
he mentions that someday it'll be mandatory that we all sell McDonald's hamburger as well as buy it to each other, and we'll sell it back and forth to each other forever from our living room. And I was just like, that is kind of how, we've, especially in the US, we've become quite this service industry country,
Mm.
and we're, like, we're ordering stuff, and then we're making stuff so that people can order stuff, and
Yeah.
and it's like a parasitical society almost, and his commentaries on that were pretty spot on, um, and especially since it was in '77, he was saying this
Mm,
already. Of course, it's only gotten grander as time's gone on, but I thought that was interesting.
yeah, yeah. That was, and I think as a what as an addendum, Donna's adventures with reeling in coke trucks and stealing stuff from them. Like she never pays for a thing, and she she keeps stealing from these corporates, and she has all kinds of philosophical justification too, which in the end the reveal about her just makes it that much more interesting, I guess. Yeah, should we talk about it? Like, should we talk about
Yeah,
the
sure.
yeah? I mean, we're not doing a
Yeah,
non-spoiler section, so we can talk
yeah.
about it in any order. But
It's definitely all spoilers here, folks.
but the well, okay. So there were a few things in the end that this was a very good book for me until we got to the end, and maybe I haven't read enough spy thrillers, but the reveal that one, the government or whoever had sort of forced Bob into this situation where he has this dissonance about like two separate people, and he was party to his own arrest, and he ended up going to this facility, which by the way, the rehab facility is selling drugs and is making the drugs. And and then Donna is also like he thought he was watching Donna, but Donna was watching, like it was actually secretly some sort of handler for him. Um, all of that was quite brilliant, but I think what was most interesting there to me, and I don't know how reflective this was of what was actually going on, but maybe there's some truth to it. But at this point, all the drugs that this group of friends is consuming are sourced from people trying to prevent the s- the what is the word I'm looking for, the distribution of drugs, or prevent or help people recover from that, right? Like the rehab facility is growing more drugs. um I don't know,
Yeah,
like if that's their main business or if they want more people to come to the facility and pay for it, I whatever. But it goes back to that thing you were saying about McDonald's. That's a great point. I don't think I noticed that that quote, but now that you brought it up, the thing about McDonald's, people buying and selling McDonald's to each other from their couch. This
yeah,
the the like basically all the drugs in the system, at least that this subset of people are consuming, is all sourced from the government and the rehab facility, and it's being cycled through all of this. So yeah, that just feels very like profound. No one's actually doing anything to stop it. They're making things worse, far
yeah.
worse.
It's the yeah, and it's like they're it's kind of a job security type thing. It's
Right.
like you need the agents in order to arrest the people doing the distribution and the
Yeah.
users, but then you need the users in order to keep the rehabs going, but yet you need the rehabs to grow the drugs to keep the users going so the agents have more people to arrest. And it's and it's this vicious cycle that goes around. And he yeah, because he mentioned that like McDonald's thing right in the beginning. And so that theme was just running throughout the whole book. And there was one part soon after that where he's listening to a recording, I think, and he says he says, "You know what? It'll be okay if I just had another hit."
Hmm.
And he kept saying that, and he said, "If he just had another hit, my brain would repair itself." Even though the irony, of course, is that it's because of these drugs that his brain is cracked in the first place. So that, but if he had another hit, he'd be okay. So that's
Yeah.
also part of that vicious parasitic cycle that is running throughout the whole book. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. it it because of that, I think that's what elevated the book for me to from a very good exploration of I guess this the people who use drugs. It's sort of like an inside look, right? And it's from an author who
Yeah.
himself was a victim of drug abuse. I don't know if I'm using the right words in that sentence, but he um, went through that and he wrote about it. And in the afterword, he talks about how he's not asking us to forgive or um, he's just asking for understanding, not to justify anything. So,
Yeah.
and I think he did a fantastic job of that. And there are moments when I think mostly it's Bob and Fred. He feels not sorry per se, but um, yeah, he feels for them, the characters, the other people, like look at what's happened to them. Oh yeah, not Bob, one of their friends. When he comes to help them, they're all working on fixing a car, and
Yeah.
he leaves because he can't stand to be around them, and he hopes that one day there will be a better life for them, like they won't be so lost within themselves that they can move on and actually live. Um and and that felt really poignant. And I think it was the same guy who talks about how he's going to keep a list of the fallen, because the brave people all get it, but these people who were sort of almost what's the word, uh unsuspecting victims of a bad situation, um no one makes a list of fallen for them. And I guess Philip K. Dick
Yeah.
did make one at the end of the book for all his friends
He did.
who
Yeah.
died or ended up with much worse lives for it. um I forget where I started with all of this. But anyway, like I think that's just really well done. Oh, yeah, why it's such a good book for me. It's There's that aspect of it with the um I guess the characters and the greater sympathy for them that the book basically is asking for. And
Yeah.
and then the the spy thriller part of it, which like it was done so well.
Well, to that point, I think you're talking about his friend Charles Freck,
Hmm.
um, and he had like Freck was considering suicide, and he spent several days um, getting these artifacts together to try to leave behind. So he
Hmm.
wanted to leave something behind, and he was like the he was like leaving behind a letter to Exxon protesting the cancellation of his gas credit card and stuff like that. And it was like even people who are down, and this guy's, he's a drug addict, and he's even these people want to leave something behind. They want to leave some kind of message. They want to leave some kind of legacy. And I think that was part of um, Philip's choice in what he was trying to say when he, and especially when he said in the end, or in his afterward there, that he doesn't want these people shouldn't be punished. They're punished too much
Hmm.
for what the crime is, per the crime. The
Yeah.
punishment's way too severe for what the crime is. The crime is they just want to have something in this life to leave behind as some kind of legacy, something that they will be remembered by and they won't be forgotten. They're afraid of being forgotten, but they can't handle what life is now. And they don't have any this kind of hope that through traditional means they're going to be able to not be forgotten. And I think that's another, pretty powerful theme that's running through the book here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah.
And I love that scene where he tries to commit suicide. There's also like a fake demon that asks him. There was a funny exchange there with the demon that he hallucinates, but I can't remember it. I but yeah, that was again a brilliant scene. And a lot of them start like that, where they have this aspect of humor, or like what the hell is going on, but then it ends on this really powerful note each time. um yeah.
Yeah. And it's he just has so many of those little nuggets like that throughout the book that you can just latch on to. And there's like there was one he was talking about a psychologist, and the the psychologist is saying that you see things in both ways. You can see things in both ways when you're on these drugs, and that one is just a reflection of reality,
Mm,
and and it wasn't that the reflection's not real, it's just reversed. And
yeah.
so it was pretty cool how he was talking about this parody in the universe and its reflected images, and which one that the person on this, specifically on this substance D, because that's what it does. It's supposed to be fracturing your personality into this mirror personality, and it's specifically for that, where we normally lack the what he calls a bilateral parity, and this is granting
Mm,
that. And of course, it's going to be very confusing for
yeah.
the, for the person who's doing that,
Yeah.
but it's very cool stuff.
And
And I don't know how
um
much of that is hokey science or what. It doesn't matter. It was just
yeah,
neat to read about.
I agree. I don't know or care if it's
Yeah.
based on real psychology. The stuff about the split brain, I think, is, I may have read some articles, but what was I going to say? And the interesting thing about Fred and Bob Actor is that it gives us both the inside look and the outside look. Like how Fred feels like these guys are so pathetic. They just talk for 3 hours about one thing, and he's like, "Was I ever like that?" And but but then for the people inside, they have a completely different experience. It's I don't know, do we see them having fun per se, but they have a lot of rambling thoughts around it. So I think that split again did a fantastic job of, what I guess PKD was setting out to do, which like give us that inside perspective while also showing us like this is how the world judges them. Maybe you can think differently about this.
Yeah. Yeah. I I agree. It was just it was really fascinating. Um, just getting that perspective. Uh, I was just looking at a section in here that this is the the dissonance with the sci-fi stuff, because he's talking about uh, uh, Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin,
Mm,
dying of drug overdoses, and of course
yeah.
that was even in his past, and
Yeah.
and 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 it wouldn't be like relevant to somebody today to be talking about those. I mean, it might be relevant for some other current pop stars that might have had drug problems or what have you, but um, it's just funny that we mentioned earlier that the whole, is it science fiction or is it but but or is it contemporary? And as um as our friend Chris often says, science fiction is about today, you
Mm,
know,
yeah.
whereas and so
This one more literally so than others.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
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 The scene when they go out to uh oh yeah, I think Bob decides to take everyone out for a couple of days so that the police people can come and plant scanners all over the house. And that whole sequence I thought was hilarious when first they he starts smelling dog shit everywhere, I
Oh
think.
yeah,
Because and then, and then they come home and they're about to do something really stupid because they think that there is a like they see the cigarette that Donna has left behind, and the
yeah,
other guy, Barry, right? That's his name.
yeah.
Who for no reason seems to
Barris,
be hate
Barris.
Barris,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Um, seems to be hating on our friend Bob Akhtar, and he calls him in. So this this guy thinks that he's policing them. They meanwhile that guy is telling on him and says he's this distributor and he's all kinds of evil. So yeah, I think that character in general was kind of hilarious and added some like comic relief to I think a pretty dire book.
Yeah,
Maybe. Yeah.
yeah. Some of the conversations they were having were crazy, um, like flat out crazy. Like they would have. It was funny because you would get into a chapter and you would start reading about a conversation they're having, and it took a little bit to realize that the conversation was just total nonsense
Yeah.
and had nothing to do with anything. They were just like talking about the strangest things, and it was just to emphasize that they're on something. There's something wrong with their processes right now. They're not taking in the situation that's actually happening around them,
Yeah.
that they're actually getting tracked by agents and they're
Mm.
actually going to get in trouble for trying to move these drugs or do these drugs. And they're actually talking about something totally off the wall. And I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember, there was one conversation that went on for like 3 or 4 pages, and it had nothing to do with anything, and one of them even pointed that out. They
Mm.
actually pointed it out, like, "What are we talking about? Why are we
Yeah.
talking about this?" And then he went off, and they came back into the room, and they're still talking about it, and it's not it, like, it had nothing to do with anything. It was
Yeah.
just like but it was hilarious, and it just kept
Yeah.
going on. I thought that was funny as hell.
Yeah. And some of them were not the one with the 7 versus 10 gears, but but the one even that I think we'll get
Yeah,
back to that. But
the
they
bike,
they
yeah.
felt very intelligent in some ways. Like they were talking about things that have absolutely no importance, right? Like things that you wouldn't spend time on, but they do. But they do so in a fairly intelligent way. Like they're reasoning things out, trying to make
Yeah,
sense of things that and think about it in a way that you probably wouldn't consider yourself.
yeah, yeah, they're doing it in a very,
Yeah.
um, intellectual manner.
Yeah.
It's just it's a that subject's just nonsense, but it's
Yeah.
still very intellectual discussion between them.
Right.
So
And sometimes it gets scary. Like I think they start hating on a black family that sold them a bike because they think that they it's
because
it's 10
Jip,
it's
yeah,
10 gears, there's 5 and 2, and they do all kinds of operations on it besides multiply, like apart from multiply. and and then someone comes and explains it to them, and I think they start thinking about like lynching them or like going and beating them up for uh what's the word I'm looking um for taking their money and cheating them with like 3 gears less. But then someone comes and says there is no 7 gear bike. You are making a mistake. Like who stole the 3 gears? That
I know. Yeah, and it took me a minute to figure out what they were talking about. I'm
yeah.
like and I was just like, "Oh, he's just talking about a 10 speed," you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like it was just like, "Oh, okay. Wow, these guys are pretty messed up."
Yeah, and like I guess that's one of their inputs to okay, something's up with Bob Akhtar's brain.
Hmm,
But we don't know for sure, but at this point I think it's safe to say that they actively encourage that so that he can end up in that rehab facility to do whatever spying for them, which yeah, Bob buys the largest quantities of drugs from Donna, and Donna is distributing such large quantities of drugs because she's some police person in this whole
Undercover, yeah,
setup.
yeah.
So that stuff that they're growing is just going to feed back into into this cycle. It's not going anywhere. I do wonder what that says about the policing of drugs at the time, or maybe even now. Like, is that, do you think that's true or possible that a lot of the drugs cycled in the system are from the enforcement authorities?
Yeah, I don't know enough about the history because the war on drugs, the war on drugs didn't come until the 80s.
Mm,
So I don't know enough about the history of the actual drug trade in the 70s in order to comment on that. It seems plausible that there could have been some corporate or governmental interest in
mm,
keeping the flow of drugs coming from wherever they were coming from,
mm,
not because these entities were interested in getting people high, but because there was some sort of other mechanism of financial gain
mm,
involved, uh, whether that was just getting paid for transport or whatever the means may have been. Um, because eventually there was a backlash to the availability of drugs and the how much was of on the streets and what have you, and
mm,
that that led to the war on drugs in the 80s, which led to a whole bunch of other bad things. But anyways,
mm,
uh, so yeah, so I'm not sure. I would that would have to be something that would be researched in order to
mm.
really get
Yeah.
a good understanding of it. But it seems from PKD's point of view here that he's putting forth that there was this cyclical problem um, that seems to be something that wasn't easily broken out of. It
Mm,
wasn't once you were trapped in it. It seems like you were there, you um, you're a I you want to. It's tough to throw around terms like victim and or self-perpetuating victim maybe,
mm,
but the like he said, the punishments were more severe than the crimes, and because he was trying to generate compassion and sympathy for those who were
mm.
trapped in this cycle, and you can see that. You can see that on the page. You really wanna like all these people,
Yeah.
um, and you really want to see them helped,
Mm,
and it doesn't feel like they're getting it. It doesn't feel like the system or um, the things in place want to help, and so
mm.
it can be a pretty powerful statement in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point about the system not wanting to help and like serving a higher or a different purpose that has nothing to do with helping them. Because ostensibly they want to catch these distributors of drugs. But then I guess Hank knew, for instance, that Bob Actor is also a friend. So why is he still uh, making him catch himself? What is that going to serve? Because supposedly whatever drugs he's circulating is to serve their own purpose. So they're not actually catching any real distributors, just perpetuating their own cycle of distribution and abuse, which I guess to some extent is also um, I guess the situation with the 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 drug users themselves, right? Like after a point, it stops being their choice and a necessity. And I and I guess that's that becomes a worse and worse cycle, which is exactly what we're seeing with the circulation of drugs too.
Mhm.
Whether or not that's based in reality, I think it still makes for some powerful statements overall.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And, I don't know if you ever seen the movie.
No, I haven't. It's
This is
animated, right?
it's
Or
it's that strange animation where the people they actually animate over the actors,
oh,
and
interesting.
so the animation looks very realistic.
Hmm.
Um, and, I saw it when it first came out long time ago, I think it was, like, way back in '91 or something,
Hmm.
and, I did not remember a single thing, uh, so, like, I had no idea what was gonna happen in this book at all
Okay.
because I didn't remember anything, but I'd be interested in looking at it now and seeing how it got translated, from the book, um, so it
Yeah.
was, the only thing I remember was looking at the animation and going, "Wow, it's kinda weird," 'cause it was like Keanu Reeves is in and it was him, but it wasn't him. It was weird.
Yeah.
So,
I can see that.
which, I don't know, kinda makes me feel like I was on Substance D, I guess, when I was watching it, but,
Yeah, they had hallucinations about going to heaven and hell and a demon coming to get them. So
yeah.
yeah. I was oh interesting. I thought for some reason that the animations might have been the hallucinations from the drugs, maybe, but like the actual people are animated, is it?
Yeah, the whole thing was animated in that way,
Okay,
in
okay,
that style, yeah.
okay. Interesting. I've got to check it out. I think I will. I don't know where I'll find it, but I if I can, I'll watch it.
I don't think it was a raving success or anything, so
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have any other topics to discuss about this book?
Let me see. I think we covered a lot of it. Yeah, yeah, we covered like them worried about a rat under the sink. That like they had the episode where they're worried about somebody watching them and telling on them,
Yeah.
and it just made sense, and
Hmm.
um, I I guess the uh, the fact that Donna ends up being an officer undercover
Mm.
um, adds another twist to it,
Yep.
and made her, character much more essential to the whole story, I think,
Yep.
and, I was glad for that, um, and, but overall, I enjoyed it. I really did, and, thought it was very good, very, very good novel, and, so that's
Same.
interesting because I know Philip Dick has another book coming up in this series.
Yes.
You
The next one's going to be Ubik
you
in
think, yeah.
about 5 months, I think. One, two, three, four, five. The sixth book from now.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay. So
Hmm.
he's got a lot. He's
Yeah. I think
something
maybe
else.
everything by him is in the Masterworks. Or a very small part of his bibliography is not in the Masterworks. So I will encounter a Philip K. Dick book every now and then for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's an accomplishment in and of itself. Really,
Yeah. Yeah.
it shows the power of some of his writing. Yeah.
Yep. The other writers that oh really it's literally every 6 months for the next we have Ubik, then 6 months later it's Dr. Blood Money, and then we have now wait for the last year 4 months from there. So
Oh wow.
yeah. Lots of you lots of Philip K. Dick. Yeah, I think the brothers Arcady, what's their name? They have pretty much everything in the Masterworks too, I guess. Yeah, there's only a couple of authors like that, I think. So it should be fun. Cool. So if if you're still with us, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in the next month with which one is it? Star Maker by Olaf Stapledon, who is also a repeat author. And this will be the second book we read by him. Then Behold the Man's coming up in June. Yeah, no, in May. And the Book of Skulls for June. So, once again, if you'd like to chat about any of these books with us, please check out the Patreon forum. And thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.